Thanks for joining us for the Changing the Industry podcast, where we try to effectuate change for the better, one conversation at a time. Part of that change is providing help for those that need it. This is why we've partnered with the Institute for Automotive Business Excellence. Whether it's help with sales, operations, or just getting your numbers in order, these folks are some of the very best in the industry. And for our listeners, they'll sit down with you and go over your strengths, your weaknesses, and the opportunities that are in front of you. They'll create a customized plan for how to move forward, absolutely free. That's right, free. And if your plan includes one-on-one coaching, they can also help you with that. There's no hard sales pitch, no obligation, just honest help from honest people. So if that's something that you think could benefit you, make sure you click on the link in the show notes. And now, on to the show.
Wait, I need a picture for the podcast. Or for the thread.
For the gram? I got to take a picture for the gram.
I don't gram well.
What's that?
I don't gram that good.
See
I
here.
probably should, huh?
I don't know. I don't use it. That's what he does.
If we get both of us taking a picture of both of us. All right.
That's hilarious.
Nice. That'll work out pretty cool.
Maybe too far away to see who I'm taking a picture of.
Have you seen that video of the girl doing TikTok dances in the middle of Costco while people are trying to shop? And
No,
there's somebody, the mom like sets up the phone, and she's like zooming in and out while her daughter is just like flailing because she's like doing this hardcore TikTok dance.
Like on purpose, or this was planned?
Yeah, in the middle of Costco, like she starts playing the music and the daughter's doing the choreographed dance. And the mom's videoing the dance, and she's like, she's doing all of the cinematography right there with the phone in the middle of the aisle at Costco while people are just trying to shop. They're they're walking around them and stuff. And so somebody caught the whole thing. And so they're standing back there videoing the mom, videoing the girl doing the TikTok dance. And of course, the TikTok looks interesting. It's like the mom's zooming in and she's doing this crazy dance. She's a good dancer. And the music's like hopping there. It looks fantastic. But if you take all that out of context and you're just watching this girl flailing her arms like she's possessed and the mom doing this thing with her phone, they look ridiculous. Well, and people walking around trying to shop, and they're just looking at them with their shopping carts.
And that's the thing is like I've all those huge YouTube creators talk about that is like, hey, I don't like you cannot be embarrassed and do this because if you're going to go out and get B-roll and all this stuff, people are going to be looking at you. And Justin will be like he'll grab his phone, put it on the gimbal, and he'll be walking down the street talking, and people are passing it. And if you pay attention, like everybody's doing this.
Yeah.
Like, what's this guy doing, Or he'll stop in the middle of the store. I'm about the convenience factor. Like, I really want people to, I don't want them to be inconvenienced by me.
I don't like being the center of attention
when
I'm not being a good center of attention.
Yeah, exactly. That's a thing for me, too.
If people look at you and they can't decide if they should call the police or an ambulance.
Yeah. Or David, does that happen to you often?
No. What are you talking about? You don't want to be the center of attention. I'm sure you don't desire, but you always are the center of attention.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Get out of here. With a smirk on your face. Like, me? Tee-hee? No.
I don't think so. It's not intentional.
Well, you make it look good.
Well, that's good.
Fake, but good.
Yeah, I'm good with being fake.
Like somebody tripping out in the middle of a Costco.
Yeah. Hey.
You look like the girl dancing in the TikTok.
Hey, look. If I look like a girl dancing in a TikTok, I guess I'm just good at it.
I didn't see she was attractive.
Oh, okay. Well, I would hope not.
She was rough.
Rough.
It was Costco, so at least I had a membership required. It wasn't just anybody.
I'd be mad. I paid for my fee, and I show up, and there's some girl doing a TikTok in the middle of the aisle. It's like, I'm here for my free samples and my A5 Wagyu.
Sounds like you got some free samples.
They got A5 Wagyu?
They do at Costco? Yeah. Legit.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have Costco's.
What do you
You know?
have?
Got Sam's Club.
That's
No, Sam's Club's not the same,
not-
dude.
it's
I don't
not.
know what the deal is.
Yeah.
I got a year membership at Sam's Club because they were doing some crazy deal, and you got extra points if you bought it with your credit card. So I signed up for the year. We went 3 or 4 times, but it was like the selection was not nearly as good. It wasn't even as good as Walmart. You're like, I'd prefer just go to a Walmart. I'm not getting that good a deal, and the selection's terrible.
Yeah.
At Costco though, like they have some legit meat. They have legit and the selection's much better. Get a giant thing of garlic powder. You're good for the year.
Have to check
good.
that out.
That's always handy. Can you
Yeah.
get out of there under $200?
No,
No.
you can't.
I go for dog food and milk,
Dog food and milk.
and it's $200.
So yeah, but see, that used to if you wanted to spend less, you just go to the grocery store. That's not the case any longer. Now you go to the grocery store and you're like, okay, $175, or I go to Costco and spend $200. What's the difference?
Look, I think we got to introduce everybody to our guest, right? Like we got to do that. But I'm still offended about the Facebook message thing. And so I think I have to tell the story.
But do you know how fast I respond to you now?
I know, right?
I mean, within 10 minutes.
I just want you to understand Eric Merchant from Merchant Automotive and Diesel Specialists.
Bro, listen, I don't think you grasp this. You don't have to say like his whole name. You just say Eric Merchant. And everybody already knows who you're talking about. Like, I don't think you understand how popular the dude is.
I'm sure he is.
It's awkward when David reads it like that.
I know. Listen, it's
Was that
pretty
the worst
awkward when
introduction
David
ever?
reads no matter
it's
what.
very weird because he's staring at me funny, like he's trying to focus on my badge, and I don't know if he's looking for more. I mean,
Listen,
He was
if you-
oogling me. He was looking me straight up and down, oogling me.
you ever felt like you've been looked at, being Google searched at the same time?
Yes, yes,
That's kind of
yeah.
kind of what it is.
So, I've alluded to it, but just so everybody knows, like,
No. Everybody doesn't need to know.
okay,
This is what happens, Eric. This is like your 3rd or 4th time hearing the story.
yes.
Oh, at least
You,
No,
right?
he hears it
He's-
every day. I send him messages every day. Hey, you remember that one time? You remember that one
Do
time?
you really?
Yeah, every day.
So at Shopware wasn't the first time you had heard him tell that story?
No, I don't remember where the first time was, which I feel like that's a letdown.
I had completely forgotten about it, right? Until you sent me a message.
That's when I remembered it.
Right? It completely like,
Messenger holds no secrets, or
Yeah.
holds all secrets,
yeah,
or something.
yeah.
If you get a new phone, it's just gone. But if you use Messenger, it's there for life.
Forever. The internet is forever.
The most challenging part of building any estimate is finding the right parts in stock and at the right price. Now, you could open a bunch of tabs, search each vendor's website, enter your customer's vehicle information, and compare pricing and availability. But if you're following the 300% rule, this can take up a lot of your time. That's why Lucas and I both use Parts Tech at our shops. It's one website to see an unlimited number of parts and tire vendors. With one click, we can import parts and order them from multiple vendors all at once. And here's the best part. Parts Tech is absolutely free to use, and your shop management system is probably already able to connect with it. To get started, just click the link in the show notes or go to partstech.com/podcast. That's partstech.com/podcast.
Hey, one more thing. If you find out that your shop management system doesn't integrate with Parts Tech, it's time to upgrade. David and I use what we believe to be the very best system on the market, Shopware. With unmatched features like Parts GP Optimizer and DVX, which is their digital vehicle experience, Shopware really is way more than just a shop management software. With it, you'll be able to create an immersive and interactive experience for your client, setting you apart from everyone else using run-of-the-mill software. Are you ready to upgrade? Click the link in the show notes to get started. There's a lot of people in this world that need to know the internet's forever. The things on the internet, they don't go away. You take pictures.
That
You take
TikTok
pic-
dance is going to be there forever.
Yeah. Yeah, you put
think?
that out there.
They'll shut down TikTok so fast.
Yeah, but that video is still there somewhere.
Yeah, they just
It'll be on
posted
some
it.
side site.
Yeah.
No TikTok dances, David.
We need to do some TikTok dances.
Do we even know what a TikTok dance is? Like, is there a training class for that?
There is training classes for TikTok dances.
I'm afraid.
You know what we do is YouTube how to do a TikTok dance, and there are YouTube videos about TikTok dances.
Oh, how cliche is that?
You can't TikTok how to do the TikTok dance.
Right, because that
you
would
can't TikTok how to do the TikTok dance. I don't think you can get a full tutorial, but YouTube will show you how to do the TikTok dance, and then you can do the TikTok dance.
File that in my.
Is this the new merchant automotive marketing strategy?
TikTok dances?
Yeah.
It hasn't started yet, but maybe check back in a bit. We'll see.
Well, because I mean, like the forums are dead now. So
Forums are dead.
we got some groups. We got
Are
Facebook
they dead?
groups.
They
I think
died?
so. Well, I haven't been on them in a handful of years.
Then they just moved to Facebook groups?
I think so.
they turn into Facebook groups.
Diesel Place still has a little bit of activity. Just a little bit, not much, not like it was, but I mean, there's still activity there.
I haven't been there in quite a while.
Yeah, I don't ever go, but I mean, like,
I think I was like member number 120 of that.
yeah, I believe you're right, somewhere in there. But I mean, like, it was Diesel Bombers, Cummins Forum, like all of them, right?
There was a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Now you hear it, it's like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, those were the days, man.
Back when you knew people by their screen name,
Yeah.
or their forum handle, I guess it was called.
Yeah, exactly.
So did that move to it moved to Facebook groups, but I think Facebook is really just older millennials and up. So where do the younger kids go to? Discord servers?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think we know where they're at.
They're somewhere.
They're not on
congregating.
I don't know.
No. I heard
what's
this.
What's younger?
Zoomers.
Give me an age
19,
numbers.
20, 21, and
Okay.
younger.
What's my?
Were you about to say MySpace?
I was about to say MySpace. What's the new Snapchat? I see my daughter on Snapchat.
Yeah,
I think that's like
they're on
how
Snapchat, but it's
text.
not. It's not the. It's not where they're congregating as a group. Like they'll message back and forth on Snapchat. They'll use Snapchat like we use Messenger.
Yeah.
So they'll send each other snaps, but it's not the same as a Facebook group or a forum used to be back in the day.
So,
I think they're all on Discord. I'm going to say Discord. I'm putting my hat in Discord.
I'm not even sure what Discord is.
It's forums, but on a central website.
Isn't that Reddit?
Yeah, they're a little bit on Reddit too. I think. Yeah, there's all, but Reddit's kind of niche. It's not even niche. It's
well, there's like here's the thing, is it all feels very odd because like what we're talking about was a group of people in a very, very specific topic area, right? So Diesel Place was all Duramaxes, right? There was some 6.2 and 6.5 stuff in there.
There's some older stuff in there, yeah.
But I mean, it was all Chevrolet pickups, right? And in a lot of ways, it was stuff like that built your brand.
Oh, absolutely.
And so same thing with Gus Farmer and Cummins Forum and, right, like all of those people, they would get into that group, and it was such a niche market that they could get in there and you could build a business around the people in that group. And I mean, they would build hype, and the people in the group could build hype for you, and you wouldn't.
Well, they do that in the
it,
Facebook groups now.
Yeah, but I mean, it was super effective at the time. It's different now.
It's a different kind of something now. I don't know how to describe it because
I think the only difference now is that there's more stuff pulling your attention. So
that could be.
Before it was like, hey, I want to be part of this community. You got on there, and then it was descending by time who posted, and you got to see everything. Where now Facebook is like, hey, there's 85 other things pulling your attention. This one thing that you're super interested in, only if you're actively engaged is the algorithm even going to push the thing in front of you. You may not even see, for example, our Facebook group. If you're not actively engaged in that Facebook group, you're not going to see the Facebook group. Yeah. And you're like, oh, there's no activity on that Facebook group. It's like, dude, it's because you haven't commented or liked any of those posts. You're not going to see any of them. Yep. And Facebook will squash that. You just don't get any movement, any activity.
And the forum stuff was more conversational based. So there'd be a thread, and you could just keep going back to that thread as a conversational piece and get your notifications when somebody else commented, and it turned into some sort of discussion, searchable, that type of thing. And Facebook, those threads, that format isn't really the same.
No, it's not.
You'll have, I mean, we all,
as far as searching topics, no.
Nobody wants to search, and then you just get repeat after repeat after repeat, which nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you're not active, you won't see any of that stuff. You'll have to, I don't know, make their algorithm give it to you.
You know, and maybe the forums were kind of the same way too, though, right? Because like if you go out and you search, let's say you search GM transfer cases, right? You're going to find information about Merchant Automotive, right? Eventually, you're going to find that information. The thing is that back in the day, only the diesel performance shops or the guys that were in the Duramax niche when you first started doing that knew about it, right? It wasn't general repair shops necessarily that were finding out about it.
Right.
Whereas now it's broader, right? You end up with more people who have access to that, but they have to know exactly what they're searching for, right? Whereas like in those forums, they didn't have to know exactly what they were searching for because there was so much content relayed around one tiny subject that it was there.
They could search within that forum.
Right.
And I think like some of the Google type stuff will pick up forum.
Yeah,
threads,
they will.
But it won't pick up any social media stuff.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
There'll be a lot of information that might be out there on social media, but you can't find it in the Google world.
Yeah, like Facebook wants you to be part of Facebook and searching within Facebook. So they keep that pretty gated. Where on a forum, it's just a website.
Right.
Discord servers are the same way too. It's very conversational. It's like a giant chat group. But
they want to take your money from the inside.
Yeah.
And
I don't know how Discord makes money. They got bought out by Amazon. I don't know how they make money. Yeah, Amazon owns them now. Amazon owns Discord. It used to be a group for gamers. Like that's where if everybody wanted to talk about a specific game and they were following a particular Twitch streamer, they would get on the Discord server and they would have this conversation back and forth. But then it kind of expanded out. So you'll see some YouTubers will say, hey, you can chat with me on the Discord server.
Yeah.
And it becomes a giant group chat where you can interact with absolutely anybody. Everybody that watches that YouTube channel and the YouTube content creator are all in there together, just going back and forth.
Oh, well, people probably love that. They can hang out with their creator heroes.
Yeah. Sure, I don't know. I'd call them heroes, but
but I mean that was the same thing in the forums, right?
Influencers, yeah.
That was the same thing in the forums, though, right? It's like they saw you doing everything you were doing. They saw all these other guys going to truck pulls, right? They saw all of that, and they enjoyed that ability to communicate with somebody, right?
It was the way everybody knew people without knowing who they were.
Yeah,
before all that social media, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
You feel like you grow. Or you feel like you learn somebody or know somebody or, I don't know, without really knowing who they are.
Right. Yeah.
We get that, though. It's a weird feeling.
It's weird because you guys have yourself out there all the time.
Yeah.
Like it seems weird for me to know weird things about you guys just by listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
It's creepy if I was you. I'm not going to lie. Like I was excited to see the minivan. I just thought it was a full kilo. And then you jump in the minivan, and I thought, "Oh my god, people are not." I was like, "Should I go live in here?"
Right?
There was an OG minivan. Was
it an Aerostar?
No, I would never. Look, as much crap as I talk on Fords, why on God's green earth would I buy a Ford? Never a Ford.
It was a Windstar.
That's what it was.
Never a Ford. I'd drive an Astrovan before.
Astrovans are badass. You can get them in all-wheel drive. They will go anywhere. You can't kill a 4.3. You can tear the rear ends out of them.
I had a lady who killed a 4.3. She killed the crap out of it. She freaked out calling me. I ended up putting heads on that 4.3 for her. Yeah. Because, again, I don't want to wrong anybody.
I think you just wronged her, bro.
And I ended up putting heads on this 4.3. Anyway. There was an OG van. It was a little old lady who had this cherry 2000 Town and Country with the pearl paint, leather, everything. It was limited. I mean, this thing was loaded. Loaded. Limited. That means you got heated seats. You got
the fold in the floor deal, or is that pre?
This was pre that.
Okay, so this
is old school.
This
you got the 3.8 with 160 horses. It was peppy.
I don't think he knows what you work on.
I feel like I'm listening to a car brochure at a dealership.
I'm saying that facetiously. This thing was a turd. It was terrible to drive, but it handled poorly. But oh man, you could like stack. I moved a dresser set from this lady's house. I just took the seats out, and then everything fit in the back of the van. And I drove down this. I love minivans; are great.
So anyway, like pickup.
And pickup, but you could also like not get rained on in the back.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was my OG van. And so, yeah, I drove that until the headliner started to come down on me. And then that was it. The AC kicked off, but I could fix the AC. I'm like, okay, it's whatever. When the headliner started coming down, the fix for it is to drop absolutely everything, rip it out. I don't know if it would have come out or they would have to pull the windshield to get the headliner out. And then fix it. I'm like, no. I'm done.
So he gives up over a headliner.
A headliner did me in, dude.
You dumped the entire bitchin' van
over a headliner.
Over some fabric hanging down.
There were little things. Like that were breaking because it's an old van. And I'm stacking the miles on it, and I'm like,
but the headliner was
the breaking point.
Yeah. That point there, my mom broke the door handles. Old.
You know, it was probably the headliner began to rub its head.
And it started hitting my head. That's exactly what it was. Like I'd get in it and I'm like, no, done. That weekend I found the white minivan I have now.
So how long ago was this?
17? No. 20, right before COVID.
Did you hear the
19.
story?
I don't remember.
Did you ever hear the story about the Kansas City win and the accident?
No. I've told the story. Why are you bringing up old stories?
I'm not. I think he should go
you know
back
what?
And listen.
I smashed into a lady because I wasn't paying attention.
Oh, yeah, I did hear this one.
He was yelling at his kids.
Yelling at the kid in the back or something. And
I was lecturing. I wasn't yelling at him. He didn't do anything wrong. He's a good kid. Anyway, the paint's not holding up on the front end.
It's not? Is it because it's chipping off or stuck to another car?
The little chips on the paint. The paint was soft. They didn't do a good job. And I went back to the Dodge dealership. Like I took it down to the local Dodge dealership because I'm like, hey, Dodge dealership, I want you to fix it because you're a Dodge dealership. I want my stuff all dodged up. And yeah, they did a terrible job.
So Amish Patel, Midwest Auto Body, I think it was him telling me, and I may have brought this up at some point, but like all of the plastic body components, like if you buy them from one of these cheap providers, they've got a coating on the plastic. And so they will come in and they'll take these markers and they'll like write something on it, like it's a PO number this, or it's this part number. And they're like, well, it's going to be painted anyway. And they've got to prep it and they've got to wipe all that off. Right. It may not have been Amish, but somebody was telling me that if they do that, like you can't paint it, you have to send the bumper back. And everybody's like, why? You're taking a prep and you're cleaning it and it's getting all that stuff off there. And he starts like flipping through his phone. He's like, the problem is that if you put that bumper on the car, you paint it, you clear it, you do all this work, the first time they go through the car wash, there's going to be a black spot where they wrote whatever on that body part because it's going to wash off because the paint doesn't truly adhere to that area. So they'll go through the car wash and they'll come out and they'll have something written on the front of their car and the paint in that one spot's completely gone.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's something about, it's a certain kind of bumper. It's a certain kind of plastic that it takes that chemical from a grease pen and it sucks it down into it and the paint won't adhere anymore.
Sounds.
Shouldn't buy cheap body parts.
Is it that it's cheap body parts? It's like Certifit stuff?
Made out of old milk jugs.
That's it. Old milk jugs.
That's what they make it out of. Old milk jugs.
It's recyclable. You're saving the environment. One grease pencil at a time.
That's exactly right.
You know, I bought a bumper from Certifit to fix for this lady. It was supposed to be a black bumper, That's what I ordered. I ordered a black bumper. It had the same OE part number. I put it in there. Sort of, it was like $90. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna slap this bumper on the back of this lady. If the factory bumper isn't painted, it's just black, plain plastic. It shows up and it's like weird gray. And I call them up. I'm like, hey, this was supposed to be a black bumper. And they're like, you get it how you get it. Paint it if you don't like the color. I'm painting this. I'm not a body shop. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. It's still sitting in the back of my shop.
What'd you do?
Well, it's still sitting there.
Well, I know, but I mean, did you get a different bumper?
We had to call the dealer, and this was like mid-COVID. So we called them up, and we're like, hey, how long to get these bumpers? They're like, oh, there's no date on the back order. I'm like, okay. And Honda, when the Honda says there's no date, there's no date. You get it when you get it. Might be a couple years.
So and by then you forgot you ordered it.
Yeah.
So you sell a bunch of like OE parts, right? Like, and I was thinking about this the other day. I think it's LB7 fuel lines. I can't get LB7 fuel lines from the dealer, right? They don't have them. So
I will hook you up.
What is an LB7?
It's the first generation of Duramax that if you
what years?
2001 to early 4.
Yeah, that's way obsolete. The dealer's like,
oh
no. I get that people. I get that people still drive them, but I'm saying in the dealer world, it's outside of the realm of
things are obsoleting quicker and quicker.
Oh yeah, Ford was the worst. The Ford, like 5 years in, they're done. They're done 5 years. So you're like, hey, this is an 18, and they're like, yeah, we don't have that. Discontinued.
And it's stuff that the aftermarket's not going to support or hasn't, like body control module or something. It's not a brake line or I don't know, just something dumb that anybody can pick up.
Yeah.
We've noticed that with the GM side. And high I mean, I don't know if they're high failure rate or if they all of a sudden seem like they are because they're on
galactic backward.
Or they're just discontinued. There's some of that stuff that
it may be high failure rate, but it's like it fails at 200,000 miles.
It fails long after
a reasonable service life.
Yeah,
but they all fail.
Right. Yeah. We're talking, almost 20 years for an LLY.
Yeah.
Fick them.
Yep.
Those things are starting to drop. And here, we're what?
Yeah.
19 years later, and the aftermarket doesn't support it. Then you're relying on some of the electronics repair module
to fix it. Yeah,
people.
because I mean you can't get them, and like they're still super valuable trucks, right? Like you can't really just turn your back on it and get rid of it.
No, and it's a 1.5 year part. If it's a 1.5 model year, I don't know how many were actually built, but there's a ton of them trucks out there, and without it, what do you do with it?
It's nothing. It's nothing, right? And so like, how do you because you've got a lot of stuff. Right? Like you've got anything you could want for a Duramax. How has this all affected you?
Some of the electronic side, it's just a matter of if they're fixable, who can fix them? How well can they be fixed? Are they reliable fix? And some of the stuff, I'm still scratching my head on some of that.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's a demand for it. I've never been a electronics person as far as understanding a lot of the circuit board and things like that.
Right. The EEPROM side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, the makeup of it. I mean, we've done a bunch of, crack solder joints on various modules or cluster issues on all the GM trucks, 03 to 7.
Yeah.
Where they all just broken solder joints. We'll reflow boards all the time, do some stepper motor repairs, things like that. But if it's into something deeper than that, that's, there's shops that do that. There's module shops, and I know it's been talked about in the past of shops that are getting into that module repair.
I think some of the problem though is some of those the companies that make a living off of that have a system or a process. They're not pulling a Lewis Rossman, where the guy's looking up the schematics and saying, okay, if I don't have a 0.5 volt here, that means if I need to scroll up here and this particular whatever diode has failed or this capacitor is blown up because I don't have 2.5 volts here. They're not breaking it down to that level. they're going through what's the most common failure on these things. So they're checking for crack solders. They're looking for something that's obviously broken, or this chip always fails. These 3 capacities blow up. They're just replacing that and then throwing it on the shelf, and then somebody buys it. They're not looking as in depth on the circuit board as you sometimes would need them to.
And a lot of that, you probably wouldn't be able to find that schematic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where they get
and
them.
the OEs aren't releasing it, even though they don't support it any longer.
I don't even know that they have it. Because they buy a lot of this stuff. Like it's
yeah, but if they're buying the module from Bosch, you would think would have the information on it, the engineering schematic behind the circuit board, and you would think they would want to release it or say, hey, there's still demand for this. You guys are refusing to make it, whatever, fine. Put it up there for public domain. Like, let anybody get on there, and that way you can then now order the circuit board to build your own modules.
Do you think there's an advantage to them, though, by saying, like, hey, we're not going to release that? Because, that's the thing is, like, we see a lot of the older trucks, right? Me and you work on some older stuff like that.
Yep.
And so the thing is those trucks will run forever if you maintain them. I mean, unless it's like a broke crank or something, and at that
even
point,
still, that's all fixable. Up by us, we just get into the salt belt.
Yeah,
the rest of the truck falls apart around everything else that still runs good.
Right, but I mean, even then, if they maintain it and they put crown on it or whatever, and they wash it and they take care of it, for the most part, you still got a pretty decent truck. That's almost a problem for the manufacturer at some point, because now here we are, we've got this truck, and they're not buying another one because that one still runs just fine,
or they don't want to spend that kind of money.
Yeah,
a new GM, the 24s, they just released the Denali Ultimate. You build it all up, it's $100+.
Yeah,
and Fords have been over 100 for a long time.
Most of the trucks are over 100 for a while,
but they just. I mean, I guess everything's going up, but that's a big pill to swallow. And if a guy's got a good running truck, 20 years old, and I don't know how many people we see come in or we talk to, this will be the last truck I ever buy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how well that holds true long term. I wish I wrote all them people down and call them 20 years later.
And said, like,
hey, that truck.
Well, and I remember, and I may have said this before, but I remember when we were doing performance work, it seemed like every single week there was a 16 to 19-year-old boy who'd gone out and bought a truck that was $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 and financed it for like 20 years, right? 19% interest, 20% interest, 25% interest just to get this truck. And then they go and they spend, $10,000 on it. They tear it all to pieces. I'm like, dude, you're going to be paying for that for the rest of your life at this point. Like, that's crazy.
And if that's what they want to do, hey, who are we to say no or whatever? But that's a huge investment at that age.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I can see. I remember being at that age and I want something cool or something. But,
yeah.
And I couldn't imagine swinging that kind of overhead, no matter how much hustle they have in them. That's a lot.
It is.
That's $1,300, $1,400 payments. Just for the truck, not counting the insurance on a 17, 18, 19-year-old.
Yeah. And like, what are you going to do with that makes money? Like, it's not going to make money.
You're going to take pictures of it and put it on social media. You put some Instagram handle sticker on it.
That's right.
And I think down there by you guys, they just dropped the ass end down.
That's it. So all you can see is the stars. Right, that's what you're really shooting for.
Didn't they make that illegal?
They did, but they're still doing it.
Really?
Like, and they're supposed to pull them over and write them a ticket and everything. I don't know.
I think it's just a fad.
I think
I don't know what else to attribute it to. That or they're after all that work putting the lift kit on the front, they're like, man, these lift blocks are going to suck ass. I am plumb wore out.
That's how it started.
After doing all this front end work.
I'll get to the rest later. Never get to it.
Yep. Well, the tires fit. They ain't rubbing. Screw it.
How did you go from general repair? Because that's kind of how you started, wasn't it? How'd you get into this whole performance thing? Like it blew up. How did that happen?
The performance thing also tended to, I think, was a fad looking backwards.
Yeah.
So early on, there just wasn't that many people doing them.
Yeah.
Because, the Duramax comes out and everybody, I mean, the Cummins was well established, the Power Strokes were well established, and the Duramax was, that was common rail. That was a whole new thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as all that stuff became, I don't say available, but it made it so much easier.
Yeah.
To drop a laptop in the seat and you could download 100 whatever horsepower.
Yeah.
Before that, it was all the inline boxes and just plug and play stuff.
Yeah.
And then that leads to, well, now you need a transmission to hold it.
Yeah.
Which was no different than any other platform. But so real early on, we got into the Allison game, doing installs and rebuilds and things like that. And again, for probably a year, this would have been 2003 maybe, I spent most of my weekends doing that. And I had an arrangement with the local hotel, and I would do 2 a weekend for the longest time.
Holy cow,
and
seriously.
I had literally people from east of the Mississippi. It was not uncommon to have people drive up.
That's insane.
Oklahoma. We've had some people out of Florida that I've gotten to meet, some East Coast people, and they would, it turned into an event. So it was, I need my transmission built. I want to go somewhere. And there just wasn't that many people doing it.
Right.
Maybe 6 or 8 around the country at that time that were internet known, I guess you could say.
Let's see. Inglewood, Suncoast.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? McRatt was building some transmissions, wasn't he?
McRatt was up there. Big Dipper, screen name up in the Northeast. There was probably some others that the names.
Right. I mean, there wasn't a lot, right? But like, how did because your name kind of like went out in front of everybody else's all of a sudden. You think it was the Orange A or what? I mean, what was
it was the forums.
Yeah.
At that time, it was the forums. It's just, I was active on them, and it's funny. You hear all the stuff here at Vision. They talk about marketing and it's consistency. Well, I was consistently on the forum, so your name's always out there, and it was a way different type of marketing than what we do nowadays. And it wasn't even intentional at the time. It was, I'm an enthusiast. I see these other enthusiasts, and they have questions, and I'm like, no, I can help you with that. Or sometimes I was learning, or could have been just general conversation. It didn't even have to be truck related. You start to build that weird, internet friendship.
Yeah.
Before that sounded like a weird thing to say, but it was just being active, and there wasn't a whole lot of other people
doing it.
So, yeah, I guess that was all it was. Maybe
insane.
There's more to it. I don't know. There might be 100 things I'm not thinking of.
Right.
But the magazine, the actual print magazines that we just don't see nowadays.
Yeah.
Just through the forums, you get to be able to connect with some of those people, and if they wanted to do an article or some type of editorial content, if you could get in front of that where somebody's doing editorial content, shooting an article on some type of repair or some type of product that you're releasing, that was a lot of pretty inexpensive press, and a lot of it just came from the mingling side of things.
Yeah.
You typically magazines at that time, they'll look through whoever's got an ad in the back of the magazine or spending money, and then reach out to them when they want to do that editorial content. But so I was fortunate enough to get into some of that, and at the time, it probably didn't make good sense, because when you're doing all that, you're donating everything.
Yeah.
You're supplying material, you're supplying labor, you're doing everything. But those were not profitable sessions at all.
Right.
But big picture.
It worked out, didn't it?
You can't take that away.
Right.
You get a couple pages of editorial in a magazine. That's, again, over and over. It just helps. And I still have all that stuff hanging on the wall in the showroom.
That's crazy. Well, so now we look back, right? And I've always looked up to you as a diesel shop, you know what I'm saying? And so here we are, we look back, and you reached out a while back and said like, hey, I want to be more involved. I want to learn more about the business side of this. And I was blown away. What created that need for more knowledge on the service side?
I didn't know what I didn't know with service, and I am the cliche technician turned owner person. And all the things that everybody says why a tech doesn't make a good owner, I literally modeled myself after that checklist that I didn't realize existed. Right. I fit it to a T. Everything. Owner should be on the service counter. I'm like, yep, I do all that stuff they're talking about. Yep.
Right.
Uh-huh. And the service was definitely where I started. And over the years, it grew into e-commerce and into manufacturing and that type of thing. And that seemed to take over a lot of the focus. And for a handful of years, we actually shut the drive-in service down. And what I realized is I didn't have any idea on these newer trucks. Like I literally wasn't sure where to check the oil.
Right.
I had to look for the oil for the dipstick, and I just like, okay. And I don't like being that disconnected from something that I was always, intimately involved in or passionate about.
Yeah.
And it was nothing to go just tear something down for the sake of learning about it. And I haven't done that in quite a while. Because I feel like I'm being pulled in a bunch of different directions. But what I also am very slow to learn, I'm the problem. I'm in my own way. I'm the bottleneck in the decision processes. I feel like I want a micromanager be involved. I don't really want to, but I want to be confident in letting go of that.
Yeah.
To do the things that I should be doing, which certainly is not sitting at a computer or trying to do trying to do website improvements or learning a new ERP system software that we use. I did it because I thought that's what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And now I'm so wrapped up in non-essential things that somebody else could definitely do. I need to figure out how to get out of that hole.
Well, I remember a conversation that Rick and I had one time, and I was like, it's lunchtime one day and I'm mowing the grass, right? And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm mowing the yard. He's like, you've got so many other really important things you could do. Why wouldn't you just pay somebody $60 or $100 to do that? Well, go $60 or $100 is a lot of money. He's like, yeah, but what you're taking away from your business is probably $3,000 to $4,000 from you not doing this, right? And you're looking at it like it's this huge deal that you're the one that does this. Wouldn't it make more sense just to pay somebody? I mean, it's like me and you talking about the bookkeeping thing, right? Like, why would you not just pay somebody a couple $100 a month when you could be over here managing the business and watching the numbers and making sure the processes and policies are doing what the business is supposed to do, being the leader, I mean, how do you make that decision, David? Like he's got task.
How Larry Bird hurt his back?
I wasn't playing basketball, I'm sure you're going to say.
He was mowing his mom's lawn.
That sucks.
Yeah. He was mowing his lawn, hit something, whatever, tweaked his back, and he was never the same again.
What's the moral of the story?
Don't mow your lawn. Hire somebody.
Well, but I mean, like...
That's what you were just talking about.
I know.
I should be out there mowing the lawn.
That. I don't feel like I want to pay somebody to do that. And I think part of that, to use this example, I don't want to go, find somebody, because I don't like to call. I don't want to call and find somebody. But I don't want to go through this negotiation process of what it's going to cost to mow the yard. And then if I did all that, I'm not going to like the way they mowed it, because I like to be a perfectionist, even though I'm not.
Right.
I
you got to let all that go.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So
Totally.
I don't call, right? I get some online inquiry or whatever, but I have a number in my head. As long as it doesn't blow that number out of the water. So I'm like, it should cost, I don't know, $50 to do this lawn. And they come in and they're like, 52, done, go. I'm not negotiating jack.
Well, that would be it too. Like I wouldn't even have a number in my head because I have no idea what it would cost because I've been too cheap to figure it out.
Yeah.
Or too lazy to want to mess with it. If somebody says, "Hey, I'll take care of it. It's X dollars." Oh, well, yeah, do it.
Have you read the 4-Hour Work Week?
I don't believe I've read that one.
You might want to check that one out. Now, it doesn't apply one-to-one, but the guy goes through his story of figuring out how to unload absolutely everything from his life and business to somebody else. So he could focus on doing whatever the hell he wanted to do. And like he talks about how, hey, I wanted to learn how to dance the tango. And where do you learn how to dance the tango? He goes, found out that there was a fantastic school and instructor in Argentina. So I needed to move to Argentina. Well, how do I get up and move to Argentina just on a whim? Oh, I figured it out. And he tells the whole story of how he figured out he was going to go live for 6 months in Argentina so he could learn how to tango. That's what he did. He just up and did it. Well, how do you unload this aspect of the business, and who's going to watch this, and who's going to take care of that? And every aspect of his life was unloaded to somebody, somehow, somewhere, some way. And he also figured out how to leverage whatever spending he did have to do into free stuff so he could, for example, our discussion with Brandon Dills this morning, he's telling me, oh, yeah, they ran my debit card, my business debit card. Well, why do you have a business debit card? He's like, I don't know. I probably should have a business credit card. Well, yeah, you should have a business credit card because Lucas over here at 200,000 points hits premium, elite, super platinum, ultra, mega status on his American Airlines points. And at that point, he's got access to the ambassador club and he gets lots of free luggage. So he doesn't have to check everything or pay. And he'll save, how much was it? $18,000 a year?
Yeah, right at $18,000 a year.
He'll save $18,000 a year on luggage costs if he hits this level. Well, how does he hit that level? He's not going to fly that much. No, he spends it on the credit card on parts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We spend that on parts, $200,000 on parts in what? Maybe 8-9 months. 200,000's gone. We have to spend the money anyway. So let's leverage on what we spend. Anyway, that's what he does through the whole book. It's an interesting read. And it does expand your thinking on, do I really need to take care of this? No, probably there's a cheaper, faster, easier way to make this process more efficient.
And, so Demony yesterday, we interviewed a friend of mine, Demony, and I think back about her situation, right? Like there was a time when she couldn't work in the business. And I don't think we ever think about that. Like we look at, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be the one. Things can happen.
Then one day you're not.
That we can't.
Yeah.
And now the business is not sustainable. There's no succession plan. There's nothing that makes this business work. So as opposed to being a benefit to our family, right? Last night we talked about generational wealth, right? The purpose of business, generational wealth. Well, like if I leave them a burden instead of a benefit, you know what I mean? Like if my wife has to take over and all of a sudden she is burdened by trying to run the business, what was the freaking point of this? Right? Why would I have done that? And I think we get so stuck in our heads, like I'm going to be here, I'm going to do this, and we're so zoomed in. We're like looking at the day-to-day operation and the thing that we've got to do in the business. We're not thinking about the long-term consequence of not building a system and a team that does it for us,
That goes back to that letting go, to the book that David brought up. Sorry, you'll have to edit that out. I have read and been through a lot of different things that all have that basis of delegate, let it go, let somebody else do it, hold accountable. And what it does is it comes back to me not allowing myself to do that. And I've done it for longer than I realize. And that's probably my biggest hurdle. I know that about me now. I've learned that. I'm still learning how to fix it or to not have to be the one that's involved in it. And there's a lot of times I don't want to decide. I don't want to make that decision.
Yeah.
But I also feel like I have input and I need to at least get my input heard because of a mistake that I might have made making this situational decision in that same scenario. Well, because of how I am, I think my staff is leery. Like if I give input, they might take that as I'm wanting them to make a decision that way. And my wife is very clear in telling me that I am the problem. And I'm not only is she clear, she's very clear.
Right. Extremely clear.
And I'm very slow to learn that lesson that I'm in the way. Like, and it's not just owner shouldn't be on the service counter. Get the hell out of the way. Let somebody else do it. And I have to learn to let go of that stuff and be okay with it. Somebody else tried. Maybe something didn't go as planned, but at least they tried. And boy, for me, that's a tough thing.
It's been really tough for me too, because like we talked about this yesterday.
Let's try to figure out why though. Let's try to figure out why it's tough. For me, in my mind, it's because there is no system or process in place to unload. I'm just winging it. Mm-hmm. I get in there. I know what I know. I know what I need to do. And I just do it. I'm not even thinking about it. I just do it. I get it done. Now you're wanting me to just hand it over to somebody else. That person's not me, right? They don't know what I know, and they haven't had the experiences that I've had. Now they might come at it at a different angle, and it's not the way I would do it, and that feels uncomfortable. But what if I had a process, a system in place? This is the way we do it. This is how we build an estimate. This is the way we would deal with these particular situations in the estimating process. And then just lead them to do the job that you taught them to do. All of a sudden, it's not as uncomfortable because you essentially taught them your process because you were able to articulate it.
And that probably is also a struggle point, me articulating it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we've spent, as a company, probably a couple years ago now, I found EOS. And I know some of the people out there probably have heard of it, some of it haven't, but the concept of EOS for me was what I thought was the best thing ever. Like it described me to a T. I portray myself as a visionary in that world, and big picture thinking and industry relationships and always looking to the future. But I found myself situationally, and maybe not situationally, maybe this is excuse too, trying to take on other roles and not just grasping where I should be. And we went through all that stuff, the accountability side of things and scorecards and putting processes in place and systems. And ultimately, I feel that system didn't fail. I think I failed that system and probably prevented the whole company from being able to fully embrace it. But knowing the concepts are pretty generic. It's not like it's not like it's doing anything that's unique to EOS or only EOS talks about it. I mean, listening to Cecil in class or listening to all these things, those concepts have been around forever. It just simplifies it, I think, and makes it 1, 2, 3 English. But the systematic side, and then sticking with those systems.
Yeah. Were you finding that you were stepping outside of the system or trying to, how did you undermine it?
I was in the way, not.
But how? So if you set the system that, hey, we answer the phone on the 3rd ring in this manner, were you waiting till the 4th ring and then just picking it up in a different manner?
No, I don't. And honestly, we didn't get that granular with it as far as the issues. Not getting out of the way is where I struggled. And I've had some situations over the last handful of years where we went into something as a project, and I tried to stay out of the way, and things didn't go how I had hoped. That were considerable expense, considerable downtime. And in my head, I'm thinking, if I would have just done it myself, I could have prevented all this.
You reaffirmed the belief that I have to be there. I have to do this.
In my head, yes.
And the thing is that if you see a failure like that, right, and you don't back up and understand, right, because we can't always be the solution,
right?
If we place ourselves as the solution every single time, what's going to happen? We're eventually going to be to the point that we're overloaded, that we're not happy with what we're doing, we're not growing to our potential because we're the bottleneck, because everything has to go through us,
and that is to a T, and it's not good for anybody.
No,
it's not good for anybody. It's not good to have to be funneling through you, because now you're the bottleneck. You're preventing everybody else on the team from wanting to make a decision because they're scared it might be the wrong decision.
Yeah, and you can build resentment, and you can damage the business culture.
And frankly, I think anybody in that position doesn't want to have to be the one to make the decision.
Yeah,
No, they do and they don't.
Well, you don't want it to be overburdening. Like it just feels overburdening, but yet I made that situation the way it was.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure how we went down this road. This is deep.
It is.
But
you must not listen to the podcast here. This is what we do.
I do. I
know
Thai
you do.
food.
I know.
I don't know if they'll knock or not, but I do.
He's got us figured out. Well, so you sit through Cecil's class yesterday, right? And so for me personally, one of the things that the problem was is I was trying to run and trying to control everything, and I've said this before. I would give myself an excuse because I didn't really know how it was supposed to be done. So I give myself an excuse for said mistake, right? And I was unwilling to give that excuse to anybody else, but I didn't really know how it was supposed to be done. So if it didn't turn out the way that I thought it was supposed to turn out, it was just, it is what it is, where I didn't look at them that way, right? I didn't look at them in a way I could give them grace for the mistake. So you sat in Cecil's class yesterday and you got some information, right? And you listened to what he had to say. Did you find weak spots in your knowledge of the service side that might give you the tools you need to go and put that in place for them and say, this is the way it's supposed to work? Do you feel like it was something like that where you didn't have that granular knowledge of a specific process or system, or do you feel like it was the need for control?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So one of the things that I 100% admit, and this comes back to tech turned owner, and never figuring it out outside of what I thought it was supposed to be. So It's been a minute, 18 years. And you fix the car, you take care of the guy, with the diesel side. And I'm not saying that diesel is different than gas. It's still essentially the same process, but it always, the tickets are a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger relationship.
Yeah.
20 tickets a month versus, some shops are 300. I guess. Yeah. I couldn't even imagine trying to keep all that organized. But the process, what I thought was, you diagnose it, you make sure it's right. And if you didn't really know what was wrong with it, and I'm learning my lesson on this. Like, okay, I'm gonna spend an extra hour or two for my own education on this and not charge the guy because I want to figure out what's wrong with it for next time. Well, that just turns into every time.
Yeah, exactly. And next time never comes.
Well, next time never comes because it's something new.
Yeah.
And we need to all learn and we all need to be educated. But, boy, I don't know how much money I haven't collected because of doing that.
Yeah.
And it's probably good that I don't. And even the labor rates. The last 3 months have been very eye-opening. And it all started, one of my guys in the back he picked up on the podcast and he told me about it. And I listened to a few and that's how I came to reach out to you, Lucas. And And it was just so weird. And then I start going in this group, and then, you start hearing these names that I don't know who these people are. It was all new to me. And like, who's Scanner Danner?
Right.
I had no idea who he was. I mean, the only U2 mechanic I knew was Scotty Kilmer. And, and every time I watched him, was the guy that talks about Toyotas. We can't say names, can we?
Right.
But I never really knew how to be profitable in service. I still don't, but I've learned a lot more about it now, just going through some of that stuff. Charge your time. Make sure your labor rate's right.
Well, I said this to Paul a while back, and Paul posted some stuff about it, and he caught a bunch of flack. And one of the things that I said to Paul is like, you're elite, right? You were an elite operation, right? You have the ability to do things nobody else in the country has the ability to do. Same with you. You know a Duramax like nobody else in the country. You have abilities that nobody else has. That's worth something, right? But I see you guys out here, and you're not charging what you're worth, and you're not charging the hours that you need to find the problem. And if you can't find it, I know it's an advanced problem. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I think that so many people took what Paul said, and they said, wait a minute, you're charging me for R&D. You're charging me for learning about the car. We're not talking about a base level diagnostician. We're talking about someone who is truly elite at their trade. They are, think of it like this. You go to the doctor's office. You go to your general physician. What is your general physician? Well, maybe they're $250 an hour. Maybe they're whatever it is. But you know that bill is going up when they say, hey, I need you to go see a specialist.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, that just got expensive, and insurance may pay for it, but it's not the same thing. And so you guys are out here providing knowledge and support in a way that nobody else can do it. But you're not getting paid for it.
No.
And so like I for the longest time, the old 12 valves and the 24 valve trucks, that's what I was. And I would solve problems, and I would deal with issues, and I would find electrical issues that nobody else could find. And I taught myself to find those, and I'd spend all this time and energy doing it. But it never did anything for me. It didn't pay my family's bills. I was subsidizing what it would cost to truly own that truck. Right. And now I think it's changed, right? Because you're talking about these trucks are $94,000 to $124,000. Now, when I fix that truck, guess what? We're talking about a different deal. We're talking about a much bigger investment. $5,000 is not that big of a deal. $10,000. Now, they might say it is, and we all don't. I mean, nobody wants to have to drop $10,000 on something. But we sat at dinner last night. We went to dinner with Cecil and Nate and Kent, David and I. You and I could see when Cecil started rattling off what the numbers should be. I could see in your and Nate's face both like, ooh.
When it's 100%. And Nate and I are in very similar businesses, and it's boy, we are not even close to. I don't want to say where we should be because that's all subjective, but where we need to be profitable. Now, a difference, and maybe it could be looked at an excuse. Services is maybe 10% of my sales, maybe 12% at best overall. Yeah. But I still think that the service has got the most potential to be the highest profit in the company.
Yep.
Because with everything else, we do e-commerce. In e-commerce, we're competing with the internet, the Amazons, the eBays, the other websites. We manufacture. Manufacturing, you're always going to have knockoffs or somebody else has got it. And then, we're all trying to sell the same tennis ball. What brand is the best? Well, and you can do, branding and marketing and sell your value, that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, nobody's ever going to be able to knock off or reproduce or duplicate the technical ability of what people will get coming in the door. And because it hasn't been a huge percentage of the business, it frankly hasn't got a huge amount of attention to be focused on making it that way. I mean, obviously I'm the type that's always prided myself on fixing something that somebody else couldn't. And I've heard that come up before. And other people saying, knowing when to just turn the job down.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, historically, we've been the place that those jobs came to when somebody else turned it down or didn't fix it.
Right.
And now, frankly, my ego gets in the way because if it comes in the door, I want to know we fixed it.
Right.
Well, that ego gets in the way. And I'd say 98% of the time, we can fix that issue. Sometimes it's an eventually thing, but we lost our rear end on every single one of them because now I'm learning that ego got in the way. So we fixed it, but they didn't put food on the table.
The two things that come to mind is Tim Kite says, he defines ego, and he said there's two different types of ego. There's a strong ego and a big ego. And he said a big ego is about you. The strong ego is about everybody else and helping other people, right? And so one of the things that I think about is as you say that, I'll use something you'll relate to. Anybody who's ever done a set of injectors in an LB7 Duramax knows that every single bolt in that top cover is going to strip out when you go to take it out. There's no way around it. You're going to put a set of bolts in it. You might spend some time getting them out, but once you get it down, it's a pretty easy job. It's not a big deal. But eventually in your career, you will put a set of injectors in a truck, in an LB7, and you will fire that bad boy up, and you will have not known about pressure testing the return lines. You'll fire that bad boy up, and it will fill the crankcase full of fuel. Mm-hmm. And you can have done the best job that you could possibly have tried to do. You could do all of the research in the world. You could do everything right, but it still cost you 13 hours to fix it and make it right. Now, at that point, whose fault is it? It's our fault. There's no way around it. It is our fault. That is our responsibility to fix and make it right.
Even if it was there before. You misdiagnosed it, or you created an issue, or missed an issue. Absolutely.
Exactly. And so now here we are. We've got this truck, and we're in a situation where we've got to fix it. Well, these guys out here saying, well, gosh, 13 hours is a lot of time on that job. I can actually get it done in 7. But what about the one time something goes wrong? Mm-hmm. Right? Because you shot yourself in the foot. Well, I probably shouldn't be charging that much an hour. Well, I'm charging that much an hour, so if it does go wrong, like I'm not going in the red to fix the truck and get the truck back on the road.
That's why I was asking. I don't understand how you guys are going off of book time. Oh, you see what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. So it was a Duramax. I called you. Maybe it was a water pump. And I called him and I said, hey, I got this Duramax in here. Like, what am I looking at on this? And I did the same thing on a Power Stroke, needed heads. And he goes, you should be around 16,000. At that point, the conversation moves away from, well, you got to charge about 16 hours book time. And then he just went through like, hey, you got to replace the oil cooler. You need this tool, but I can hook you up with the tool. But you're going to need this tool.
Right.
and you're going to need this, that, the other, and this other thing. Once you get the knowledge that this is what it's going to look like to do this repair properly, all that factors in then is the cost. And you see what I'm saying? Like, It's now the price to do this repair is $16,000. That's it.
And
regardless of whether it takes 10 hours or 5 or 20, we now know the process that encompasses 80% of the repairs.
It's Steve Roberts does a bunch of 6.0 work. And one of the things that he's brought up and talked about before is like, if I'm going in there, what am I going to do? I'm going to put rockers in the motor, right? 6.0, 6.4, either one. If you go in, you're putting rockers in it. If the rockers are worn, you're putting lifters in it. You might as well go ahead and put lifters in it anyway because they'll lose needle bearings in the rollers. By the time you get the head surfaced or checked, there's a chance that one of them is going to be cracked, and you could have a cup that leaks, so you need heads. By the time it's said and done, you're looking at a big job. And what does the client do? The client comes in and says, well, such and such down the road will do it for $3,500. No, I don't think you understand. They're not doing the job I'm doing for $3,500. You can't do that. They can't do it for $5,000, and it's just like they
can do it for $5,000. It's just not going to last,
right?
And the irony in that is sitting here today, I know we don't charge appropriately. But so we're not charging enough. And it's funny because how many times we'll get vehicles in, or we don't lose a ton of jobs from a dollar standpoint historically, but they got it done cheaper somewhere else. And I'm already too cheap.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why are we undervaluing ourselves? And especially when you look at the numbers, if I break out service department numbers, it flat doesn't sustain itself.
Yeah.
It will not survive. And I'm not even accounting into that rent for the space that it occupies in the building. If I just look at payroll numbers on on the people involved in it, it doesn't pay for itself.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, this is just ridiculous.
John Anderson owned a shop. Now he lives on a boat on the Bahamas, but he owned a shop down the street here. And he was online one time. He goes, there are no bad jobs, just improperly billed jobs.
Yep.
And I think it was Paul Danner was saying, did you mention this? I might have been texting. He goes, hey, now when the car comes in, it's upfront flat fee this much just to start. It's going to be like this moving forward, because we know that if we're getting this car, it's already a problem child, and I'm not going to lose my shirt on this. And we might figure it out in 10 minutes, but guess what? Luck of the draw.
Yeah.
Most of the time, 80% of the time, this is going to be a minimum of this much time invested in this vehicle, and that's going to carry this level of cost to it. So it's not a matter of, hey, I'm going to say no. We say no to vehicles because we don't want to put the time and effort in. But you as a Duramax Allison specialist, you sort of have to take on, that's how you bill yourself. You see what I'm saying? Like the brand carries we will fix anything Duramax and Allison related. Okay, that's nothing wrong with that. If you take absolutely every Duramax and Allison on, you need to start looking at every single diagnostic process. It carries on average a 4-hour time. What is that going to cost if I factor in my gross profit number needed? That means it's going to be $1,000 for me to even touch this vehicle, for me to make any money on average. Now, that covers 80% of the vehicles. That's what you end up having to factor in. 80% of the vehicles, I will make profit on $1,000 if it's an upfront charge, and that's what it turns into. Village Auto Diagnostics. You see him post something on there. He has a 22-inch monitor. When you walk in the shop, it hits you right there. And if this vehicle is 2010 and newer, it's $160 an hour. If it's 2010 and older, it's $175 an hour. No free diagnostics. And then that's it.
Well, and so I think there's a few aspects of this, right, that we got to talk about. And one is there is a certain level of salesmanship's not the right word, but a certain level of explaining on the front counter to convey to them, right? And as owners, when somebody comes in and says, you're too expensive, man, it hurts. But the problem is when you start going up, and you don't realize this until you get it where you need to be and you're charging what you need to charge, those are not the clients that need to be in the shop anyway. Those are not the clients that are... No,
it's not even a client thing. It's he's going to get every Duramax and Allison owner. And it's the cost of owning the truck.
Yeah.
We have a slightly different deal that we can say no to things. He's in a corner. He can't leave that corner. He's stuck there.
That's been some of the conversations that there's a handful of other guys in the we'll call it in the diesel industry that are here. And a lot of this discussion and training and everything else is based on general automotive, which is perfectly fine. But we all find ourselves having these little conversations off to the side. I'm like, well, how does that apply to us? Because, quote unquote, we're so different. Our average ticket is substantially higher than the industry, but obviously our car count is way less. Our jobs are bigger. Our carryover is bigger. We can't just schedule, excuse me one second. 4 trucks or 4 vehicles a day per tech, like I've heard a lot of people do. And I'm like, man, would that be easier? And I don't know how we would get around that.
Here's the thing, though, is that it works the exact same way, right? Now, the deal is you might find your gross profit margin a little bit lower in some of the parts. We talked about, you sell a set of 8 injectors in a Duramax, right? Mm-hmm. We probably need to come down a little bit because we're going to have so much gross profit, and the amount of time it takes gross profit per hour is going to be so high if we put them at 60%. Like, we're going to be substantially higher than anybody else, right?
Sure.
But in the same respect, you got to have a higher labor rate, right? So that makes up for some of that. We still need to be able to repair that job or warranty that job no matter what happens. Like, that doesn't change because we're a diesel shop, right? And I've talked about parking lot scheduling. Parking lot scheduling is the exact same thing for a diesel shop as it is for a general repair shop, right? I schedule my diesel jobs the same way. It's that my average hour per RO for a diesel job is X. For me, it's about 6.5 hours. So I know that if my diesel guy's on a job, that his tickets are 6.5 hours. How many 6.5 hours tickets can he do in a day? He can do 2, right? Mm-hmm. It may be that it's a day and a half, whatever. But the point is he typically is on that two job a day ticket, right? And so we just look at our hours per RO and we say, hey, listen, this is a higher hour ticket, so I have to schedule accordingly, and then I have to have this many dollars per that scheduling, right? My average ticket for this is this. I watch my GP per hour, and it works.
And
right?
that right there, all them specifics and knowing all that information, I 1,000% struggle right there. And
you know why? Because it was all gobbledygook. Well, let me tell you, cluing in a little bit here. It was all gobbledygook. It was. Sorry. It sounded good though because he's got that southern accent.
Well, anyway, makes that twang.
What with you being a specialist though, you've got a leg up. You've got a huge leg up in that all of a sudden it's managing expectations. It's not how many do I schedule? Get them all in.
Yeah.
Every phone call, they're calling you because you are the Duramax Allison specialist. That's it. Now, when you show up to a specialist, the whole, hey, I need to get in for a quick oil change is out the window. Now you're waiting for my time and expertise. I'm sorry. Right now, our inspections are 2 to 3 days out. I'm just letting you know. Our inspection, you can drop it off. You need to drop it off here because we'll put it in the queue. Once it's here, it's usually 2 to 3 day turnaround to get your inspection back. Okay, what happens after that? Then we present you the estimate. You figure out what you need to do. And how long does a repair take? It depends on what we're doing on the vehicle. But it could be 2 to 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay. Now, they don't have to come back to you, but understand that if you want the Duramax Allison specialist, that's what it's going to take. And at that point, that removes the whole conversation of how many cars. You take them all. Yeah. Take every, and in that 2 to 3 day turnaround, maybe a week now, because you just have more cars sitting there.
I think, though, I guess the thing is that I don't want him to go back and say, well, that won't work here because I'm a diesel shop, right? I don't want him to say, well, I can't charge that because I'm a diesel shop and our tickets are bigger, so we can't charge that much for that. Right? We hear that so much. I can't do that here. That won't work here. You don't understand my situation.
Yeah, but at some point, I think you've come to the realization that that's probably not the conversation you need to have with yourself.
It's just that excuse generated thing in your head. So maybe 3 weeks ago, I raised the labor rate, our shop rate, our door rate, 22 and some odd change. Because I went to an off number. I'm like, we were flat $125, and every time you quote something,
the Duramax Allison specialist was $125 an hour.
I told you I'm not very smart.
Holy moly, that is cheap. That's a good deal.
Hey, I'm gonna start shipping them up there.
I know. It's like, hey, you got about 6 coming to you.
Right, I need a water pump done.
Bring it on in. But my rate just went up.
Ship-ins are $250 an hour.
I think what's most important, though, if this were me, and I'm completely out of the loop. Like, it doesn't matter to me, right? It's like I'm not affected by it. But if I were to sit down and look at the situation, I would calculate out what my overhead is going to be, my fixed expenses, my variable expenses, and then build in the profit. And then now you have a decent budget to go off of and go, what's realistically the amount of hours I can get out of this shop, assuming decently efficient processes. And then now you have a number, and now you just, whatever the labor rate has to be, the labor rate is. It may not be 147 and change. It might be that, hey, I need to be at 211.52, and then I can still run a 35% parts GP, and we need to target a 35% parts GP, knowing that I'm going to be at 2-to-1 parts to labor ratio. And the numbers then end up working out profitably for you without having to necessarily do any other work or get any more vehicles through. If it legit is, the problem that ends up skewing everything is that your build hours look artificially low.
Oh, they genuinely are.
But that's not necessarily my guy's not fast enough. It's we
undercharged.
We way undercharged. Yeah, that should have been a 32-hour job, not a 16-hour job. And it's because we did 32 hours worth of work, but just like you were saying, you got to add the bolts, and you got to do the pressure test on the return line, and all of those little nuances have to be billed, and they're not being billed because you're just looking at R&R injectors, 16 hours, and then that's what you're pushing through.
Yeah, we have a lot of kits or things like that, and if we do that injector job, 98%, 99% of what we're going to need to do from a rusty truck thing, we can predict that. We can put all that in up front.
Of course.
There's always the miscellaneous, and I treat shop supplies probably not. I mean, I think our tickets max at $50.
Holy
for shop supplies.
Cow. But just like Cecil was saying last night, that needs to be gloves and some rags. And
and right now we
safety squints.
We write off a lot of stuff to shop supplies from a lazy standpoint.
Oh no,
and that's the biggest thing. And is that justifiable? No, because it does add up. It does. All that stuff does add up. And then another struggle that I call a struggle, could be called excuse. We have an e-commerce site. We're putting the parts on a guy's truck that we sell on our e-commerce site. He can look at our e-commerce site and say, why are you selling it to me at a higher rate? And currently, we don't have the ability in our SMS to be able to hide all that information. I've learned a lot about what SMS looks like nowadays.
Yeah.
And clearly...
What system are you using?
I'll tell you after the show. It's not common.
They won't. I guarantee they're not listening.
And they're good.
Well, I mean, it's old. If it's old, it's old. It's like WindWorks or something like that.
No,
like really old.
No, it's
older.
It's
older than WindWorks.
French.
It's French.
Canadian.
Lancar?
Who?
Lancar? I ran Lancar for a while. They were Canadian.
You're close. And maybe it's the same thing. That's just saying it in French.
He does have a thing for the French ladies.
Well,
I do.
It's the van.
She has a great voice. That's all.
Oh, but the system we have now, I've had for a long time. I didn't know what I didn't know until I start realizing that, like we can text people in it, but I can't get text authorizations. My DVIs don't integrate at all into it. So my DVI is a completely standalone thing, and I'm bouncing back and forth. And I don't want to say that SMS is the reason we're not profitable, but I can't even figure out how to run reports on half the stuff in it.
Yeah.
And then, last night at dinner, we pull out a phone and we're looking at numbers, around a round table. And I'm thinking, I'll be over here. You guys need anything? Scrolling Facebook. Cause I can't, I can't see any of that. I have to log into a desktop. And so
you got to look at the dealership though. The dealership, somebody goes into service at the dealership and they need some brakes or whatever. the price that they are paying for those brake parts are not the same cost of what they would go into at most dealerships. Now, some dealerships are sketchy, but they're just doubling the build hours. That's a different deal. But for the most part, they're paying $150 for the brakes. Well, they could go and buy those brakes for $65 across the counter at the retail parts place. That's not your problem.
Well, and that's
like,
and that's the
you're
best.
not. I'll be happy to sell you these parts at this cost, sir, but we're not putting them in, and they're not carrying my warranty. Do you want this to do the service work? Yeah. It's like, okay, well, then the parts are going to cost this much. But it's even that. It's like parts and material. It's like it's the full service costs this much to do.
And that's where I need to approach it as, because again, it's the owner on the service counter thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't charge him that much money.
Yeah.
Well, why not? And again, the last 90 days have been eye opening for me in a lot of that stuff. You know, the company as a whole is profitable, but if I look at service department, it should be the most profitable, and it's not dragging the rest of the company down, but it takes a tremendous amount of resource and attention pulling away from other parts of the company. Whereas it should be the leader, in my opinion, or my new opinion, or my feeling. And that service department is what generates the items that we sell, the products that we develop.
Yeah.
I've always done the factory flaw type fix approach. So never really had a lot of performance type parts. So like, here's a factory flaw. It's a known issue. Here's how we can make it better. Now we have an improved version of a stock piece or upgraded or something. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a race product. It just means this is a common issue. Here's how we can fix it. Mm-hmm. Or at least our.
Well, I was telling him about the transfer case deal last night, right? Because a lot of those transfer cases got just scrapped and replaced and got a reman unit put in. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's I was trying to explain to him. I sucked at explaining it. So
I explained it fine.
So,
I was geeking out on your website last night, by the way. He was like,
yeah,
I know. I seen some notifications come through.
Yeah, I know, right? I spent all my money.
So GM new venture transfer cases would have been the 246, the two-piece housing, magnesium housing case, not the earlier stuff that had the bolt-on tail cone, but all those transfer cases, 98 to 07, anything GM four-wheel drive except an all-wheel drive, was notorious for the pump rubbing through the housing. And probably everybody's seen it or heard of it or dealt with it or knows exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And we would see those, and I'm thinking, okay, why is this happening? Well, this sharp little aluminum pump housing is floating around in this softer magnesium housing, and it just happens over time. And I remember shortly after I started the company, sitting there, I'm like, oh, if we could just make this wider. So I took a stock plate over to a shop across the street that did welding. So he took some, aluminum and built up that for me. And then I went back and filed it all down and put some surface area to it where it rubs. And I'm like, oh, that works pretty good. I'm like, this is not going to be cost effective to be doing this. So that turned into the process of, okay, how can I take this part to getting it produced and getting it drawn up? I'm not a CAD guy. So in the first, I bought 10 of them, and it cost me what felt like as much as my house to get 10 of these made. So I had to charge not near enough, but enough to get those sold. But basically what that's doing is it's fixing that transfer case. I can take that plate, retrofit it into any case, even if it's got some wear started, and keep it from happening in the future.
Yeah.
And the only issue with those transfer cases, or for the most part, was the fluid had all come out of them. And like we always tell people in our company, transfer case is the forgotten beast. There's no dipstick. There's no warning light. There's nothing that says, make sure you double check the transfer case. So if you keep fluid in the thing, it's probably going to last.
Yeah.
Well, that little pinhole, the way it sits or the way it wears in there, it's above the fluid level at a rest. So it's only going to leak going down the road, and it's only a pinhole. So you might get a few spots on a tailgate. It's the only thing you're going to know until it's just run itself plumb out of fluid.
Yep.
So that plate was just, I don't want to say an accident, but it wasn't me sitting there thinking, today I'm going to come up with something new. What's it going to be? And looking around the room, it was just, we see this repeat failure. Let's turn that into something. Let's do that to production. Let's blah, 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 blah. Because of the challenges of outsourcing that and dealing with outside lead times, brought machines in-house. So then we start CNCing those ourselves. And then I have to CNC it. Then I need the material. So I bought a saw to cut the material. So that turns into this whole manufacturing side of the company.
Yeah.
And I'm sure my numbers are going to be wrong because I haven't looked in a while. But I dare say over the years, we've probably done 25,000 of those plates.
Yep.
And it sounds like a lot until you realize how many of them vehicles are on the road. We didn't even scratch the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so I asked you to tell that story
Did I tell the right part of the story?
You
or
did.
was I
No,
complete?
you got it. And so I asked you to tell that for one specific reason. It's that what you don't realize is because you look at that plate and you say, I'm selling this online for this, right? But you go in your shop and you do that service, you just saved them $4,500.
Yeah.
Right? And you're saying, well, but the part doesn't cost me but this much to make. And I've sold a bunch of them, so I've already made my money back. So it's not, you say that has worth, that has value.
Yeah, that repairs X amount of dollars.
You accomplish something for them that they couldn't have accomplished otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so does that get recommended as just a maintenance item?
It's a lot. Okay, let me rephrase that. Because it only fits to 07, the sales have dropped on them. Those trucks are getting older.
Yeah.
There's some knockoffs that are on Amazon. I've seen of that same thing that are, copied. I can't compete with the Chinese. That's fine. It was easier in the older days, 5, 6, 8 years ago, to recommend that as a recommended service or a maintenance item. But probably what it was is we did learning what I'm learning recently. We might have not had the confidence in portraying it to the customer that, hey, we can go in there and do this and we can save you a bunch of money down the road, because it's not, I struggled with because, it's not guaranteed it's going to happen. It could. If we pulled the transmission out of the truck, which we did a lot of those Allison builds, that was just part of the job. I'm going to drain that fluid out of that transfer case regardless, because time and time again, we see a transmission issue that really is a transfer case problem.
Yeah.
If the transfer case isn't working right, throwing the speed sensor off, that the transmission needs that speed sensor. So we've been able to catch that. And also, if we're going in the transfer case, maybe, A, I can sell him the fluid. B, I know he's getting fresh fluid, so at least we inspected it. And I'll open it up, put the plate in. And then usually there was, maybe the blocking rings were worn. It was grinding going into gear. So we could upsell a little bit on that regard so that transfer case wasn't going to be an issue for him. And then I knew the transmission was going to last, or at least it wasn't going to have an issue because of a transfer case. So it was that kind of like you talked about doing the rockers on the 6-liter.
Yeah.
It was doing, this is going to be an issue. We're going to make sure it's not. As long as, and again, this is where I was the owner on the service counter. I didn't like selling people stuff that they didn't need. And I'm not talking about fluid maintenance and general maintenance, but I don't always have the confidence to say, you should do this. It's $4,000 to prevent this from happening, which is $10,000.
Yeah.
That's where a good service writer can have that confidence, and he can do that job because his heart's not in it. His
wallet's not in it. It's not spending his own money. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and look, I mean, I went through the same thing, and I, even being back on the counter a little bit here recently, I catch myself doing it. I'm backing stuff down, or I'm saying like, and it's probably going to be a problem eventually, but it'll be okay, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the thing is
until the first time it's not.
Exactly.
And you screwed that customer over. You should have said something.
And so I think the thing is what I have learned, the thing that I do is I'm flexible, right? I'm not trying to set a hard line in the sand that says we have to do this. This is the only way to do this. This is the right way and the only way. I try and be flexible, and I try and educate them. I try and be their advocate. I try and give them information so they can make an informed decision. My job is to educate them. It is their job to decide how they want to spend their money.
Yeah. So you always tell them. Okay. Thank you for listening to the Changing the Industry podcast. If you enjoyed the show, do us a favor and leave us a review on your favorite podcast player. And don't forget to set it to automatically download the latest episode. Our efforts with this podcast, the YouTube channel, and the Facebook group wouldn't be possible without the support of our awesome sponsors. So please take a moment, check them out by clicking on the links in the show notes.